Welcome back, and you are still onto Cosmopolitan Market on NCBN. And businesses and organizations are increasingly concerned about how their goods and services get to the final consumers, and that is key to customer satisfaction. And therefore, there is the need to have discussions about supply chain and supply chain management. And therefore, to discuss further on this, I am joined right now by a supply chain management expert. He is Dr. Alius Ilya. Hello, Doctor, and thank you for joining us on the program this morning.
All right, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here today.
I'm happy to have you as always. And for the benefit of those who probably do not know what supply chain management is, I would have loved to go directly into the conversation, but I think it's only right that we had like an overview or a definition as to what it is. So I'd like to hear from you, Doctor. What, in your point of view, is supply chain management?
All right, thank you. In simple terms, when we say supply chain, it's just the network of activities that occur between raw material and the consumer. When we say raw material, a lot of things has happened before it gets to the consumer. What happens between raw material and the producer? What happens between the producer and distributor? What happens between distributor and a wholesaler and retailer? And lastly, to the final consumer. So the network of activities that happens in between this blue whip effect, like we call it, it is what we term as supply chain management. And this process affects prices, affects delivery time, affects processes, and that's why a good organization who manages their supply chain very well, they get the best of their business and their customers are always satisfied.
So when we speak of supply chain, what comes to mind is procurement, logistics, warehousing, and the likes. How key are this, part of these members of the value chain? How key are they, especially in the supply chain system in Nigeria specifically?
Now, if you look at procurement itself, both in private and public, they are key factor. In fact, they are internal drivers for the economy and for the private sector, because anything that happens in any organization is a function of procurement. If you get this economy, Nigeria economy right, it's a function of procurement. Why? If Nigeria wants to fix a road, there should be a procurement process. If Nigeria wants to build a university, if Nigeria wants to build a market, if you want to sell a product, anything you want to do, there must be a procurement process. Now, how well do we manage this procurement process? Do we follow the rules of procurement? Do we do contract splitting? Do we follow the bidding process? Is there even procurement abuse, such as contract rigging or procurement or bid rigging and what have you? So these are the things, the major internal drivers that drive everything. If you look at most of our roads in Nigeria, you discover that those roads within 10 years, they are not good again. What happened? What is the terms and conditions given to this procurement in the procurement process? Do you let them know that this is what we want? We want a road that will last for 50 years and this and that is what they give. So if they fail to do the actual things, you call them and they should pay for it. So that's part of procurement. And as a private business too, procurement helps you to know what is in vogue. It helps you to know the right thing to purchase at the right time in the right market. So if you don't do procurement, you are even changing yourself, so to say, to know what is going on, how much, what product, is there new technology, is there new or better way of doing this? If you advertise, maybe if it's public, you advertise in tender journal. If it's private company, you go to the dailies or you do selective bidding, as it were. But this will reveal to you what you need to get. Perhaps if you want to go out to advertise, you must have your own scope of what you want. You must have the scope. So if you look at procurement very well, a well tailored, well administered procurement process helps a country to move very well, help the economy, and even private sector benefit from it. So procurement is very key, and the value chain cannot be overemphasized when you look at procurement. And then when we talk about supply chain, it's a whole lot of things, like you rightly mentioned: procurement, logistics, warehousing, transportation itself. It's a very key thing. If you do anything you do in Nigeria, if you don't factor transport into it, it's a big problem. So it's a bigger area that needs to be well monitored by federal government and see how well it is well managed for a better economy in Nigeria.
You said something that stood out for me. You said something around procurement or the supply chain, value chain affecting the end products, that is the price at which a certain commodity or service would go for. And then in the wake of 2020 and even up until now, we have been grappling with the effect of the COVID-19 situation, and we saw most sectors of the economy, of course, being affected, including the supply chain sector as well. But I'd like to hear from you as someone who is a key player in that sector. How would you say the sector has fared and is currently faring?
Well, I think COVID-19 is like a blessing in disguise to supply chain industry, because it creates room for more business. During the lockdown, you could see that there was door-to-door delivery. This is part of logistics, and you could see that people still get things that they want, but in a special way, and it's leave room for only professionals to operate. So during that period, while all that sector of the economy was down, the supply chain, the logistics area was much more booming. Perhaps what the takeaway there was that it helped us to discover a lot of technology and better way of delivery, and like I said, countries who get their supply chain process right, such as China, they benefit a lot from it. So if you get it very well, and I would also like to go back to federal government where we are discussing that how they can actually help in that area. But for 2020 up till now, I think supply chain is getting it right, and we are expanding in our delivery, because anything you want to do now, if you don't involve a logistics expert, I think you are not getting it right.
You made mention of the federal government, and I'll take you up from that. How has the collaboration between the government and experts such as yourself been in the past? Has it been seamless, so to speak?
Well, we kept seeking for government intervention in supply chain process in Nigeria. I must tell you, it is abysmal in Nigeria, because if you look at, let's say, a 40-feet container landed at Tinkan Island in Lagos, and it's going to move to Kano, it takes you over about 10 million to move such container. And who bears the brunt of such? It is the end users, consumer. So a lot of things need to be put in place. First and foremost, our road is dilapidated, and it needs to be fixed for a seamless movement for supply chain process. And if you look at that, even let's look at port authority itself. The process you pass through in port before you can bring your container out, it's a whole lot of things. Custom, health officer, Standard Administration of Nigeria, NDLEA, NAFDAC. Look at a whole process for you to go through before you can bring out a container. And if you look at that in supply chain, it's as impacted negatively. It's a negative externality for such a consignment. So for you to bring a consignment out of the port, it's a problem. So government need to look at this thing. Is either they unify the process itself, or all this taxation, they unify it so that we can know that once you pay port settle all these people. But we pay port, you pay port health, which we call environmental health officer, you pay NAFDAC, you pay all these people. The process is cumbersome, and in the long run, you still hit the road. For you to move from the port authority down to the main road, it could take you 3-5 days. Is that not bad enough? So it kills business. So supply chain process needs to be viewed very well by the federal government. Perhaps if we have correct and very organized supply chain process, it will reflect on our GDP positively, and I think Nigeria will benefit for it. So Nigerian government need to look into the process. Well, we say they have worked to an extent with ease of doing business. It helps, but I think it should go beyond paperwork. It should be more practical. When you have your consignment landed at Tinkan Island or maybe Port Harcourt, or where any port in Nigeria, you should be able to calculate, to predict, to forecast that in 3 days this consignment will get so person, because the delivery service delivery time is very, very key, and that's what we look at. The more you stay on the road, the more you pay. And more so, we have a lot of blockage in Nigeria. If you are to move from here to even Bauchi State, you have to see a lot of obstruction that you need to look at. So as a supply chain person, we want a seamless movement for our consignment, so that perhaps if you have a cold chain that is temperature sensitive, you are in for a trouble, because for you to move a cold chain item from here to Bauchi, you must get an ice pack. You must make sure things are put in proper perspective. And having done that, you get to the road and they said pack. And you pack, and you expended probably 3 hours. What happens? Maybe you may, in fact, and all these temperature sensitive items, once they lose that temperature level, it become ineffective again. So who lost? It is the company, not the government. But in the long run, it affects the end user. So it's very key.
Talking about this process affecting the end user, like you rightly stated, the more you pay for this, you pay duties, you pay for taxes, the more the price at the end of the day is heightened, and the customer or the consumer is the one who gets to bear the brunt of this cumbersome process. And that brings me to issues around inflation. I mean, even more recently, we've seen inflationary pressures. Basic foods and commodities have, of course, increased in prices. And to curb this increase in prices, then we also have to work on the supply chain management. Moving into 2022, there are insinuations and discussions around dousing inflation and inflationary pressures. How or in what way can we, of course, strengthen supply chain management, not just in importation and in trade facilitation, but to the smallest sectors, such as even talking about consumer foods that are eaten on a day-to-day basis? I mean, how can we strengthen the supply chain value chain?
If you even go to some farms or call Nigeria, countryside rather, for you to move your produce, farm produce, from the point to the market, feeder road to bring it is a problem. The price of bringing is a problem, and in the long run, those things got rotten. If you go to some of those, you see them spreading it on the ground, they got rotten. So I think moving into 2022, I don't see inflation disappearing, because we have got to know that the federal government said it's going to remove subsidy. Then if you remove subsidy from transport, what have you done? You have virtually affect every sector of the economy, because it's if a farmer wants to bring anything to the market, it's through transport. If a supply chain, if a logistics person wants to bring things around, it's still transport. So it's in the long run, it's affects. So I think without beyond cushioning the effect for individual, like the 5,000 that is rightly mentioned, what is the effect on logistics, maybe community itself? What have you put in place? Is there a dedicated, maybe articulated vehicle for these people, say 1,000? Is there dedicated buses? You know, is there dedicated things that makes these things move seamlessly? Because if you are looking at individual, giving them 5,000, and remember that 5,000 you are giving, it is it's consumption subsidy. It is not a production subsidy. So I think it's better even empower this supply chain process by making sure that there is a production subsidy that could affect and reduce, that could probably reduce the price of things. Because when you talk about inflation, it simply means the increase in what? In price of goods and services. So for the price of goods not to go in, because if you give someone 5,000, it does not mean that person will not still expend it on transportation. But if transportation is far cheaper to bring farm produce, so now you need to be focused. Let's produce also a thing for each state to move farm produce from the farm and better the feeder road to the market. This will really reduce and help in inflation. So, but that you want to just give individual consumption subsidy, I think it's not right at all. So
the subsidy that has been announced, the 5,000 naira, of course, to the poorest of Nigerians, that has been announced by the Minister of Finance, is not enough. It's consumption subsidy. It will rather increase the inflation, right? But if it is production subsidy, like you invest, perhaps you can even invest in SMEs and people that move market, or buy them a bus that will just move those things. It's far better compared to giving them the money. It's in the long run, it will only increase the inflation rate in Nigeria. It cannot do us any good. Perhaps it's a short term, and if you look at it, it's not even well calculated. If you are expending 1.8 trillion for subsidy in a year, and you want to trade off 2.4 trillion for individual, that is, if you multiply 5,000 by 40 million, to give you 2.4 million, which is a lot more than the subsidy you're paying for subsidy in a month. Multiply it is 1.8 trillion. So if you look at it, it's not well. I think they should go back,
before they implement such thing and review it.
All right. Doctor, recently you brought together key stakeholders in the supply chain management field for the supply chain management conference.
Right.
Can you speak to us about that conference? What necessitated it? What brought about that conference?
Well, thank you so much. The conference brings about all the professionals, both from Bureau of Public Procurement, private sectors, NGO, organized private sectors, to discuss a way forward for supply chain in Nigeria. And in discussing the way forward, we were able to discuss about the procurement and the challenges. And the good news is that we even discuss about the buyers for our procurement. You know, when we talk about buyers, every country has buyers. And when we say buyers, what is the benefits of a citizen when somebody from China is trying to bid for a contract, and I'm from Nigeria, I want to bid for a contract in my country. So the buyers now explain that according to the Bureau of Public Procurement is that there's 15% buyers. So probably if I bidded for 100 million and somebody in China bidded for 90 million naira, they are going to increase his own, add to his own 15 percent, so I think about 15 million, which will make it to be about 150, and I'll be doing 100 million, 115 to 100 million. So this give you back. And also ladies too, when a woman is in contract, they're saying if a lady rather and a man is contesting for a particular contract, the lady have 19%, you know, advantage over that.
Is that really true, Doctor?
Yes, people are not using. Perhaps if something is 100 million naira, right, and two of you are doing it, they are saying they should increase it to 119 for if a lady propose 119 million naira, you know, for a contract, and I myself propose 100 million, the law says they should give it to that lady. You understand? That's a preference. So these are the bias, and most of the things we discuss at this conference, most people are not exposed to this discussion, right? And apart from that, we also discuss the challenge of logistics in India. Like I said earlier, federal government needs to do more, especially about our port and our roads, because if you have a good road, it's always better to even pay for toll gate and have a seamless journey. Do you get? And my car is also in good condition. So they should look at that, and that's why we still advocate. There's a new law on road authority, federal road authority. There's a new bill in front of President Muhammadu Buhari. We also want to advocate to Buhari to sign that into law, because it's better we have a good road. There is no way only money, FEMA can solve the problem of road maintenance. But if you have a pool, an authority that can do public-private partnership and what have you, we have a good road, and a supply chain process, we have a better way. We also discuss about warehousing and what have you. You know, if you look at Kaduna is having what we call dry ports, and dry ports enable economy of that state to flourish well, and perhaps even very soon it may be the hub of the north central and the north, because they have provided a storage facility, a lot of warehouse. So it's better you use a principle we use in supply chain called just in time, to have your item move from Lagos to Kaduna compared to coming to Abuja. Because for warehouse to store something in Abuja is quite very expensive. But there's a facility in Kaduna where you can save it there. Anytime you need this item, you just go to Kaduna and bring it down to Abuja. Far cheaper and very, very instructive. So these are the things we discussed, and it was very well attended. Also, we also inducted people from challenges of supply chain management who has become professional now. So they have been introduced to what they need to do, and we expect them to go out and explore in the world of supply chain management. At least Nigeria will see the benefits in the long run.
And Doctor, the theme of the event was the role of procurement, which you've spoken about: procurement, logistics, warehousing, and material management. But looking now specifically rather at material management, most times we see that in the value chain, most of our materials are imported. I'd like for you to speak as to how we can, have more of our local production, upscale local production, and make use of our local production more than the imported ones. Are there solutions you can prefer towards that?
Right. If you look at Nigeria economy, we are on a rentier state. And when we say that a country is on a rentier, it simply means all your good things, all your raw material, you are exporting it to a country, another country. You refine it there, you still bring it back to the country. So that country or that people or global market determine the price they buy it from you. They determine the price they refine it for you. They still determine the price they sell it for you.
And that affects the consumer here.
It's a serious thing, and that's what is happening to our even fuel issues. Because if Nigeria have 2-3 refinery working, it will reduce the burden. You won't subject Nigerians to international market price. You want to do this is local, it's refine local and you sell locally. So I think we'll continue to advocate for federal government to make sure that they make sure things are produced here. There's what we call comparative advantage. I don't think we take advantage of anything we have in Nigeria. Our biggest comparative advantage should have been crude oil, but we are not benefiting anything from it. So also other produce, our gold, we don't have comparative. So most of our raw material are being exported to or they are not even there. Look at Aja Okuta. Some will say it's international conspiracy. I think it's federal government political unwillingness that is causing us, that is taking us backward in that. Because if you can have that, it will solve a lot of things. The value chain will be there, to produce, give us employment opportunities in thousands. So we need to make sure we refine our things locally and make sure we even refine to sell outside. So we refine here and sell outside. I think that would be the best for Nigeria.
Okay, Doctor, we are moving into 2022 now, and
Right.
of course, like you stated before, COVID-19, of course, definitely affected the supply chain management value chain. But moving into 2022, what ways can we have a consistent growth in that sector? What should we put in place, to increase reliability and sustainability in the supply chain management field?
Right. I think Omicron is still assuring us that we'll have a seamless 2022. But be that as it may, I think government needs to do more. Get expert of supply chain together. Let them profile what we can do step by step to make sure that we have a very good supply chain process in Nigeria. These internal drivers of the economy, let's make sure it works well. Right from the port, you settle that for the farmers to bring their things in, even the movement within. Let me even give you one funny banter. For you to move within Lagos, from where you work and where you reside, it may take you 6-7 hours. Do you know that if you fly Nigeria to London, you'd have been in London resting before you get to your house in Lagos? So how do you think that affect? Don't you think that really killed the economy? Before if you use 5 hours to get to where you work or to deliver your item, you are even exhausted. Perhaps you end up going only to one place as a logistics person. So government needs to look into it very, very well and create an enabling environment. Perhaps with the problem of insurgency is also affecting supply chain, because there is a particular period you cannot move. There was on Saturday, some consigners are supposed to move from Kaduna to Abuja, but when they are on the Kaduna road, they were advised to park. You can't trade off your life that because of your consignment compared to the bandits that could happen there. So you have to park. So insecurity is a major problem affecting supply chain as well. So government needs to do something to tame this thing that continue to stare us on our face.
Indeed, for us to strengthen our supply chain management value chain, we need to tame or nip insecurity in the bud, as well as encourage local production, not exporting our local produce and then importing it and selling it at international market price. We've been speaking extensively on issues around the supply chain management in Nigeria, and I've been speaking with Dr. Aliu Ilyas, who is a supply chain management expert. Thank you, Doctor, for the very insightful conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Well, this is the point where we wrap up today's edition of the program. It's been a very insightful and very educative one, like I stated earlier. And we will be with you again tomorrow by 11 o'clock a.m. to bring you up to speed with happenings in the world of business, the economy, finance, investment, and all of those. So do well to join us again, same time, same station tomorrow. I am Chiamaka Nendo, and from myself and the entire production crew, have a lovely day. And thanks for now. Thanks for watching.